Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Chips and Bits
It's
podcast,
podcast.
your favorite video game podcast. I'm your host this month, Matthew Anderson. With me, as always,
Kenny Myers, the only video game podcast featuring Matthew Anderson and Kenny Myers.
absolutely.
We don't whore ourselves out like those other video game podcasters.
We do not. We're back again.
Also, because no one invites us.
Kenny, how are you doing this month?
Oh, I'm doing great.
Good. I heard a rumor that you got a Steam Deck.
I did get a Steam Deck.
Yeah? You want to give us a short mini review before we jump into a game?
I'm still kind of learning it. It feels really nice to use. It definitely feels like it was designed by the people at Steam, the UI, in that you can do what you need to do, but also it's confusing. But I will say it's the least confusing UI that the Steam designers have ever made. So there's that. Yeah, I'm really loving it. I mean, I was just playing Hitman 3 and just running through because there's all these different types of missions. Like there's the main mission where you assassinate however you want, but then there's special objectives you can check off. And they upgraded Hitman 1 and 2 to run on the 3 engine. And so I've just been sitting and playing little stupid missions where I get deadly poison and kill someone with deadly poison to check off the checklist. And it's been running great. It's a high DPI, which means even though it's lower resolution, it's the density makes things look really nice. I got the matte screen, which as a matte, I know you're a fan of it.
I can appreciate.
Yeah, and yeah, it's not as bright, I understand, as the glossy one, but it's really nice. It's the least reflective surface screen I have in my house, so that's saying something.
And you've been sitting where while playing Hitman 3?
I haven't played it on the toilet. So the Steam Deck's pretty heavy, and I'm still in the new phase with it, and so I don't want to injure it because they're also hard to get.
Got to build up the right muscles.
I was never really a pooping gamer. I never brought the Switch in to go poop. I always figured my phone was for that, my phone, I wouldn't touch it if I were my friends. But my consoles stay out of the bathroom. None of that dirty bathroom stuff with my video games. Yeah.
So yeah, this is the Chips and Bits podcast where we always get right into the poop jokes.
At 2:43. Let me play the theme so we can do other things. Okay, here's our theme.
It's great. It's great every time. Hey, we're happy to have you with us. Before we jump into the game, I'm looking at my housekeeping notes. We want to let you know you can find us online at chips-and-bits.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. That one's slightly different. It's Chips and Bits. Our Patreon's on hold at the moment while we figure out how we want to evolve that community if we want to. The last place you can find us, which you may be watching us on right now, is YouTube. You'll have to search for us right now because we need 100 subscribers to get a custom URL for that one. So apparently we don't have 100 subscribers, Kenny.
We'll get to it, Matt.
So if you're watching this on YouTube, do that thing. What do people say? Hit the subscribe, smash the subscribe button.
I believe it's smash the like button and ring that bell.
Well, whatever. Whatever the kids say these days.
And twist that turtle.
This month we are going to be talking about the game Metroid Dread.
Ooh,
Metroid Dread.
Ooh,
the newest Metroid installment on Nintendo Switch, and it's going to be fun because typically I take notes. I don't have any of my notes this month because I forgot to take notes for this game. So this is going to be one of those ones that's off the cuff.
I like that you're that it's going to be fun. And it was really fun when you had notes.
Yeah. It was, more fun.
How could it be less fun than Matt with notes? I guess it's really the question.
I want I typically like to let Kenny start when I'm doing the hosting, but I have a specific thought that I want to get Kenny's feedback on. So I'm going to jump in here right away.
All right.
And we Metroid is so prolific at this point that it's its own sort of like subgenre of game. You'll commonly
Metroidvania.
hear things referred to as Metroid, Metroidvania, which is the merger of Metroid, Castlevania style games.
Yeah.
And they've got some themes and some cliche things now that you can expect from them.
Like Metroids.
And what I wanted to start with, and to see if you had the same take or not, Kenny, was I think it had been so long since I played the actual namesake Metroid game
Mm-hmm.
that I think I forgot how good. Like you just think of it as sort of like a funny thing that Metroid describes as a genre of game now, but I forgot. I think how good Metroid games are at being Metroid games, at being Metroid games. Like one of the things I immediately came away with and then lasted throughout the course of playing this game for me was it's kind of no wonder after playing this game how an entire genre of games sprung up and are trying to mimic this particular formula and recipe for a game, because everything that this game does that's Metroidvania now, descriptive wise, it does it way better than all the other games that have come before and after it since its inception, like almost to a T. And that was really surprising to me actually when I played this game.
Did you play Other M?
No, I didn't.
Okay. Well, that's good. You avoided that disaster.
Okay.
Other M was the last mainline Metroid game that was new, and it was awful. It did everything wrong, like everything. It's like what was that Unreal Engine Metroid style game that we really liked? That was like set in modern times.
In Shadow Complex?
Shadow Complex, yeah. Like it took the wrong lessons from watching like Shadow Complex for like an hour and made it a Metroid game. It had like a narrative. They took away Samus's powers were like restricted by the military general, not because of any event. Like he was like holding back her suit's powers, and it was like very like weird weeby anime like thing. It was pretty bad. And then there was Samus Returns, which was a remake. I think it was Returns on the 3DS, which is actually the same company that made Metroid Dread, made this 3DS game, and it is very good. It is a very good remake. That's where they actually got the punch combo. But still, the second Metroid game is one of the weaker ones, I feel. So even though they did a really good job improving on that foundation, they were still kind of held back a little bit by the context. It wasn't like that cool one where she gets the Metroid suit and there's like viruses and stuff like that. That was a good one. I love Metroid games, and I'm really sad that Metroid games aren't. It's amazing how you talk about Metroidvanias and like how popular they are to emulate, because other Metroidvanias have been way more successful than Metroid itself. Like Metroid is a low-selling game in Nintendo's stack, and Dread is the first one to really sell quite a bit. I think it was at 3 million last time I checked, which is really good for a Metroid game. They're not usually popular in Japan. They're popular in the West. They're not even very popular in Europe, from my understanding. That it's been pretty much an American phenomenon. And yeah, and this developer clearly understands the feedback loop of Metroid games. Like this game was so enjoyable to play that almost everyone I know who played it the first time went back and started again on hard to just try playing through that again. Like, did you do that?
Yeah, only like for a level though.
Yeah,
Like,
for a little bit. But like you
and part of the
still
reason though is because it's so fucking hard. Like, it's so hard.
That's
That I'm
true.
like, how hard is hard? Like,
It is one of the more difficult Metroid games. I mean, minus like anything on the Nintendo, which was just difficult in general. I mean, I love this. Like, you and I have essentially reviewed a large portion of the Metroidvania games, with few exceptions. But I've played most of the ones that we haven't reviewed. But like Guacamelee, you could argue is a Metroidvania. Like, I mean, it even like has the Chozo statues in a very funny reference.
I mean, I think Guacamelee might might get the closest
Well,
to.
Ori's a lot like it
Yeah,
too.
always good too. Well,
Uh,
so and like
Shadow Company, which we didn't
one
review, but we
one
both
thing,
loved.
yeah, no, I really like Shadow Complex.
That one.
Yeah, the thing that sticks out the most to me in this formula is that one thing that is just unanimously present and slash required for sort of like the mapping and game mechanic is backtracking. You have to do it all the time in Metroidvania games, and I guess we're so accustomed to playing styles and genres of games where like the next game that you play, when you recognize that they've lifted inspiration from another title, you typically see that, but then they've added something to it or they've tweaked it. And
Yeah.
ideally, in games that you've played and you remembered, they've done a better job at it. So I think I've just kind of like blindly become accustomed to playing certain styles of games and just assuming that they're getting better. And like I said, you play Metroid Dread, and that's immediately like the first part of the formula that sticks out is that the way that they handle backtracking, you almost don't know you're doing it most of the time. Like
Yeah.
you feel like you are having so much fun exploring new places, going back through these tunnels, learning new skills, and being like, oh, I remember this wall that I can bust through. Whereas like even in like a really successful title that we loved, like Guacamelee, there were times when you were like, oh, dude, I got to go all the way back over there. And they were like zooming in on the map, trying to find stuff.
Yeah.
It wasn't as fun. And I never did that in Dread. Like it was almost perfect how they implemented backtracking in this game.
Yeah, I mean, there are times in these games where you hit a wall of where to go next. And I still think there were some walls in Dread. I specifically remember only one major part where I was like, where the fuck do I go? Like, I have no idea, which happens a lot in these games because it is like backtracking and stuff. But they open pathways in such a like you just kind of knew where to go, but it never felt like linear in any way. And you remembered things a little bit better, and it always felt like it actually was so good at like making you backtrack and go to new areas that I was worried I was going through things way too quickly. Like, it just was like you'd go back, you'd unlock the gate, I'd be like, should have unlocked that gate? I might have missed something in the other area. The truth is that you can get access to absolutely everything. And what this Metroid game did, which you probably didn't experience because you really only know this if you look it up and you play again generally, or by incident, they actually have branching pathways where you can go get a power. Like there's like usually Metroid, it's like you get powers to unlock other powers. And this one, you could go completely through things and like get the morph ball or the bombs uh, well before you get what seems like the linear path to get through this whole boss fight with Krang. What's the name of the? It's like uh, and that was new. Like there were points where it wouldn't actually be linear. Like you could go do different things, but it was so tightly designed that you didn't really know that. Um, like you didn't really know that option was available, and I really like that. Um, that the boss fights were tough, and that one was really tough. But it turns out if you go and get the bombs by following a different path, by doing a little jump trick, not a hack, not like a cheese or anything. That fight is one of the easiest fights in the game. Yeah, like you get the ball and you get shot into his stomach, and then you set off a bunch of bombs, and that's the end of the second round. That's it. No, that's the death of the boss.
Huh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So like there's this whole like they designed the boss fights in case he went a different path and got a different power up to make it 3 times as easy. Like uh and so there's little things like that like tease at like um they tease at knowledge of like how other games might work, but they never go off the path where you just feel like lost. Like, oh man, it just was so. It's such a fun thing to play. The most controversial part was the Emmys, the
Well,
EMMIs.
yeah, I mean, I was just going to bring those up that like I thought another aspect of this game that again contributed to the difficulty quite
Oh
significantly,
yeah, it's a
but
difficult
also
game.
yeah, but also I think contributed to how enjoyable the pathing and backtracking mechanic were these mini bosses um, that would could one hit kill you, and they you would get into these certain areas and everything would change about the area. You'd know that one of these mini bosses, which was basically like this stalking robot that was going to come and get you and like pierce you with a spike, you'd know they were in the area. And as you made noise, you'd see these reverberations on the screen from like the steps and the jumps that you made, and you couldn't get too close to them and alert them because then they'd come and chase you down. And once they were chasing you, there was no, you weren't looking for things anymore. You were just like, where's the nearest exit? I gotta get the fuck out of here
Yeah.
now. You were running for your life. And it would sometimes they would span rather large areas, and you had to make it through there, ideally stealthily the first time. Find whatever you needed, which was like a temporary boost to your weapon. It wasn't an upgrade. You had to go and find this power source in each level to supercharge your weapon to destroy one of these mini bosses. And once you did that, the whole tone and way that you navigate that area completely changed because now it's open. You can like relax. You don't have to zoom through it. You'd find stuff that you missed. So I just thought that was like really well done. And yeah, the mini bosses are super scary and they're very hard. You know, your only chance of survival if you get caught, which I thought was just hilariously like just hilarious how they implemented this. You could block it, so like the one shot kill that the mini boss was going to do, you could block it,
Right. You like
but you
there's a parry system in this game.
yeah, you only had one chance to block it, and the spike was going to get triggered somewhere within a second, but random. So like
Yeah.
you couldn't time it ever. It was always a random time. So you
Yeah.
would never get. I mean, like
You just luck into it.
20 times you would
Yeah.
accidentally hit the parry button at the right time. I just thought it was hilarious.
I thought adding survival horror elements to Metroid was genius. I thought it was so. I thought those creatures were genuinely frightening. Like your butthole clenches through that whole area. You
The noise
never.
too. They're little,
It's so rare that you survive or even sneak by one of those appearing on screen. Like just like the alien in Alien Isolation. It's just like you like. It's such an intense encounter, and you were just trying to get out as quickly as possible from that situation. It is a different pace than the rest of the game, which of course is more like exploratory. The combat was actually really enjoyable. The weapons are really good. I thought they did a really good job with the button mapping. Actually, the controls felt really tight on this game. Like they felt very responsive. It didn't feel like anything was particularly like straining to reach, and as a result, like you know, it's always fun. I think parry mechanics are my favorite mechanics in games. Like it's always fun to have a timing mechanic that gives you such a huge bonus, like parry mechanics. Obviously, Dark Souls has one. Sekiro does not have one. It does not have one. Um, and then this game has it, and it's just that like it plays along in boss fights. It adds a whole nother dimension of like luck to things, and like getting the timing down is like a fun another level other than just knowing where to shoot on a boss. And I thought that adds a lot to the game. Actually, it's really like the only new like Metroid mechanic in the game is that parry system, which actually was in the Samus Returns that they made, but this is like its first big debut. I really love that. I actually really love the story in this game. Would you like to speak about the story, Matt? Instead
No,
of just saying yeah, because we're on
I
a
mean,
podcast.
before I forget, I was going to add on to your control.
All right, we'll talk about the story after you talk about the controls. Go ahead.
One thing that a lot of these games that sort of like straddle the fence between side-scrolling platformer and then spatial shooter is the fix your movement button and just the mechanics that come along with that. And typically, if these games, if the control mechanics break down anywhere, well, that's a quick one. I mean, it breaks down there almost immediately. And there's so much in addition to this. Kenny mentioned the parry mechanic. There's a sliding and sort of like a jump and dash mechanic that are all integrated into the battle system. And you do have to fix yourself quite a bit if you want to be in the right spot to avoid these attacks and then parry and move. And it was like butter. Like I never had an issue with that particular system. And every time I used it, I was like, man, you can do so much with just like 4 different movement systems, just because it seems like they spent so much time making sure that worked in all scenarios. So that's just more praise on the control scheme. Like the fixing your movement was really easy to use here.
Yeah, it was really easy to be precise, which is a lot for the Switch controls. For those fucking not the D-pads, but the analog sticks on those things.
And yeah, I don't remember an awful lot off the top of my head about the story, so I'll have to let you lead, and I'll see what comes back to me.
Well, essentially, you're chasing an evil bird,
Oh yeah, I remember the evil
one of the
bird.
original Chozos. I think you were made in this lab where you landed, if I recall. Um, this is technically the end of Samus's like the current arc, at least, like of Samus's arc, and it ends very beautifully. I thought. Um, when you discover, and this is a big spoiler at the end, like in most Metroid games, you encounter fucking Metroids. Like usually it's like one weird Metroid at the end or some weird hybrid. But the kind of twist at the end of this game, and again, huge spoiler, is that Samus and like you were the Metroid all along. Like essentially that was it, which is like because of events in previous games. And it was just revealed that like Samus is like this weapon and you're fighting this very difficult boss at the end. And it just, one of the complaints about this game was it was the most like misogynistic piece of shit complaint that like I think it was a Polygon article that was like Samus doesn't like emote enough, but Samus I like or like wasn't expressive enough in this. Samus's face does so like the animators did so much work. You know what she's feeling, and she's such a badass. It was so fucking insulting to read that, and I felt like compelled to just follow like you like the story was just like little drops every like few hours, but it was like it wasn't cheesy, it was really interesting, it was like bittersweet, um and it was just really fun, and it was rewarded like when you beat bosses and stuff, and I like stories like that. um and you know, like we can't remember the specific name of the guy or anything like that, but
It was like it was something beak, like big beak or razor
yeah,
beak,
I think
something like
Boss
that.
Beak was his name.
Boss beak,
Yeah,
yeah, something like that.
Koopa, Big Koopa.
It
Um,
was so like, but if I remember correctly, at first you feel like they're good, and you're out kind of like trying to help them destroy something, and then I remember
well,
so the beak,
The AI is like there's an AI on the planet that you think is trying to help you.
but then beak was infected, and
Yeah.
so that turns out bad. But then there's something. There was another twist at the end that I just can't remember that had something
Well,
to do
the
with
AI
like,
was Beak the whole
yes,
time.
okay, yeah,
Yeah.
got it,
He was just like using her to do stuff.
exactly, yeah,
Yeah. Beak, whatever his
beak.
name is.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
Oh, what great boss fights in this game. They really made you work for it, but they were so enjoyable.
It's Raven Beak X.
Yeah. Obviously.
There you go. Of course.
Yeah. Um yeah, this was I feel like it's sold enough that they feel like they need to make another Metroid. I know that they're allegedly have a remastered Prime just sitting there, and there's Metroid Prime 4 coming. Um, but I just fucking love Metroid. And like, you know, I like Other M was really disappointing. But ultimately, like every single Metroid game I've ever beaten, from the original on the NES to the Super NES, like every single one. Prime, I've actually never beaten. I've gotten 70% of the way through. I've never played the other two either. But I loved Prime. Uh, and this one, I was just like, I just love this game. I just love everything about it. The like, the lore is really interesting, but it's not like aggressive. And this game was like the most polished version of that type of game I think you can make.
Yeah, I can't. I can only agree. I thought it was excellent all the way through. So, like again, so many things could have cropped up. Pacing, blockages, weapons could have sucked. Bosses could have sucked. Everything is great. Even like the stuff we didn't even allude to. There's some cool like spatial and audio tricks that they do. Again with the EMIs, the EMIs,
Yeah.
where you walk into a room for the
I
first time,
believe
like
it's EMMI.
EMMI.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, like the sound gets dampened, and it's like you're in a dark cave, and it's like you can hear them like beep boop, like making their sounds far away. And you're like, oh shit! Just so much stuff to put you in the mood they wanted you to be in when you're playing this game. And yeah, I just remember when I was playing it, it was one of those games where every night, even if I just had like 15 minutes, I kept wanting to pick it up, play it.
Yeah,
not put it
and you
down.
could even when you were
I
pooping.
could. Yep, definitely. So yeah,
Yeah, I
you
it
should
would
all
it
play.
would.
All you chippies should play it.
This is a strong recommend from the Chips and Bits podcast.
Super strong.
No
Yeah.
caveats, just full blown. Get in there and get those missiles. Get all those missile upgrades.
Or the bombs with whatever this jump trick is that Kenny's alluding to, which I'm gonna have to look up after this.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. You should look at the Krang. I want to say it's either Kang or Krang. I always mix them up. Which one's the turtles one is Krang.
Krang is
So I think
turtle.
it's Kang.
Yeah, Kang.
Yeah, Krang is Shredder.
Oh wait, isn't there a Star Trek one too that's close to that?
Well, there's Klingons. Um, it's Kraid. That's what it is.
There you go.
I think Kang is the Conqueror. Uh, Kang is the
Cave.
Conqueror,
A lot of bad
newest villain in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Then there's Krang, the Shredder's ally in Dimension X, and then of course Kraid, the giant monster who I was referring to earlier with the belly trick. But yeah, this is a strong recommend. This is like a very rare thing. There's no Matt caveats or Kenny just hating every moment of it. This is a solid game that everyone should play.
Definitely. And with that, we'll close this podcast. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back next month with, I think, Solar Ash. Is that what we're doing next month?
Oh God, Solar Ash.
Uh, you know, come listen to that one too. We won't give anything away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been your host this month, Matthew Anderson. Other side of the mic is
Kenny Myers.
And thanks as always. We love you, and we'll see you again next month.
Maybe.